The Ravine, a short story by Salisbury. When Vinny and 3 others dropped down into the ravine, they entered a jungle thick with tangled trees and rumors of what might have happened to the dead boy's body. The muddy trail was slick and, in places where it had fallen away, flat out dangerous. The cool breeze that swept the Hawaiian hillside pastures above died early in the descent. There were 4 of them: Vinny, his best friend Joe Boy, Mo, who was afraid of nothing, and Joe Boy's Uli girlfriend Starlene, all 15. It was a Tuesday in July, 2 weeks and a day after the boy had drowned, if in fact that's what happened to him. Vinny slipped and dropped his towel in the mud. He picked it up and tried to brush it off, but instead smeared the mud spot around until the towel resembled something someone's dog had stepped on. "Tsk," he said. Joe Boy, hiking down just behind him, laughed. "Hey, Vinny, just think. That kid walked where you walking." "Shut up," Vinny said. You probably stepping right where his foot was." Vinny moved to the edge of the trail where the ravine fell through a twisted jungle of gnarly trees and underbrush to the stream far below. He could see Starlene and Mo farther ahead, their heads bobbing as they walked, both almost down to the pond where the boy had died. "Hey," Joe Boy went on, "maybe you going be the one to find his body." "You don't cut it out, Joe Boy. I goin'. "What? Cry?" Vinny scowled. Sometimes Joe Boy was a big fat baboose. They slid down the trail. Mud oozed between Vinny's toes. He grabbed at roots and branches to keep from falling. Mo and Starlene were out of sight now, the trail ahead having cut back. Joe Boy said, "You going jump in the water and go down and your hand going touch his face, stuck under the rocks." Vinny winced. He didn't want to be here. It was too soon, way too soon. 2 weeks and 1 day? He saw a footprint in the mud and stepped around it. The dead boy had jumped and had never come back up. 4 search and rescue divers hunted for 2 days straight and never found him. Not a trace. Gave Vinny the creeps. It didn't make sense. The pond wasn't that big. He wondered why it didn't seem to bother anyone else. Maybe it did, and they just didn't want to say. Butchie was the kid's name. Only 14. 14. 2 weeks and 1 day ago, he was walking down this trail. Now, nobody could find him. The jungle crushed in, reaching over the trail, and Vinny brushed leafy branches aside. The roar of the waterfall got louder and louder. Starlene said it was the goddess that took him, the one that lives in the stone down by the road. She did that every now and then, Starlene said. Took somebody when she got lonely. Took him and kept him. Vinny had heard that legend before, but he'd never believed in it. Now he didn't know what he believed. The body had to be stuck down there, but still, 4 divers and they couldn't find it? Vinny decided he'd better believe in the legend. If he didn't, the goddess might get mad and send him bad luck, or maybe take him too. Stop. Don't think like that. Come on, Joe Boy said, nudging Vinny from behind. Hurry it up. Just then, Starlene whooped, her voice bouncing around the walls of the ravine. Let's go, Joe Boy said. They there already. Moments later, Vinny jumped up onto a large boulder at the edge of the pond. Starlene was swimming out in the brown water. It wasn't murky brown, but clean and clear to a depth of maybe 3 or 4 feet. Because of the waterfall, you had to yell if you wanted to say something. The whole place smelled of mud and ginger and iron. Starlene swam across to the waterfall on the far side of the pond and ducked under it, then climbed out and edged along the rock wall behind it, moving slowly like a spider. Above, sun's sparkling stream water spilled over the lip of a 100-foot drop. Mo and Joe Boy threw their towels onto the rocks and dove into the pond. Vinny watched, his muddy towel hooked around his neck. Reluctantly, he let it fall, then dove in after them. The cold mountain water tasted tangy. Was it because the boy's body was down there decomposing? He spit it out. He followed Joe Boy and Mo to the waterfall and ducked under it. They climbed up onto the rock ledge just as Starling had done, then spidered their way over to where you could climb to a small ledge about 15 feet up. They took their time because the hand and footholds were slimy with moss. Starling jumped first. Her shriek echoed off the rocky cliff, then died in the dense green jungle. Mo jumped, then Joe Boy, then Vinny. The 15-foot ledge was not the problem. It was the one above it, the one you had to work up to, the big one, where you had to take a deadly zigzag trail that climbed up and away from the waterfall, then cut back and forth to a foot-wide ledge something more like 50 feet up. That was the problem. That was where the boy had jumped from. Joe Boy and Starling swam out to the middle of the pond. Mo swam back under the waterfall and climbed once again to the 15-foot ledge. Vinny started to swim out toward Joe Boy, but stopped when he knew Starling put her arms around him. She kissed him. They sank under for a long time, then came back up, still kissing. Vinny turned away and swam back over to the other side of the pond, where he'd first gotten in. His mother would kill him if she ever heard about where he'd come. After the boy drowned or was taken by the goddess or whatever happened to him, she said never to come to this pond again, ever. It was off limits permanently. But not his dad, he said. You fall off a horse, you get back on, right? Or else you go and be scared of it all your life. His mother scoffed and waved him off. Don't listen to him, Vinny, listen to me. Don't go there. That pond is haunted, which had made his dad laugh. But Vinny promised he'd stay away.